Now, as I said at the top of the show, to unpack, well, of course, the latest from the Stampede that happened at the FNB Stadium over the weekend, we're joined by Jacques Robler, Chief Executive at the Stadium Management, the company running the stadium. Jacques, thank you very much for joining us on Sports on Prime. Must have been a difficult couple of days, but things like these, unfortunate.
Tabisa, yes. First of all, our condolences to the families of the people who passed away, unfortunately. Nobody goes to the stadium to die. Unfortunately, it did happen. So we would want to share the grief with the families.
I mean, we saw some footage. We've been running some of that footage a bit, well, throughout the afternoon and in the evening. I want us to run the first clip of footage. It's about 1:17, where maybe, in fact, thereafter you can actually talk to the footage, what exactly was going on there, because it's a question of, was it not enough security? But if a stampede happens, if people break through and funnel through a small gate, my perception would be it doesn't matter whether you have 1,000 cops. But anyway, let's take the footage first and make your own judgment on it.
Excellent.
Yeah. See, right there, that's the topical piece of footage that we received a short while ago. Now, from where I'm looking, the barricades had already been broken into, as you can see at the top right, yes, where there are people already inside the perimeter.
That's quite
a lot of people were asking the question, how is it that people get this far anyway?
We've got an outer perimeter about 500 meters from the stadium before you get to the turnstile gates. That outer perimeter was also breached by about 400 people. They simply took the fencing away and they ran in. They then disappeared between thousands of people between the outer perimeter and inner perimeter. And you will see on the footage right there now, you'll see certain people running in. First, there was 1, 2 people running, followed by 5, followed by another 10, 20, 30. That were not in the queue. They all went straight for the gate that were breached.
What's interesting for me now, on the right-hand side, at the bottom of the picture there, those are people standing at the turnstiles getting ready to make their way in.
Yes.
What I think a lot of people don't understand, because the question was asked, but how do they break through those gates? But the turnstiles are there, why couldn't they wait their turn?
If they had tickets, they would have been in the turnstile queue. They didn't have tickets, and those who had tickets tried their tickets, the fake tickets. They tried the fake tickets, it didn't work, it didn't scan. You know, it's a message that we've been carrying for 7 years. Fake tickets will not scan the scanner. You've got to scan a legitimate ticket for the turnstile to turn open. This is also why we are steering away from stadium management from the terminology that it was a stampede. A stampede is mass hysteria and panic from a lot of people fleeing in a specific direction. This didn't happen here. This was a breach of the perimeter by unticketed individuals breaking the perimeter fence into the stadium.
The question then would come in, why are there no police? We do see some police. I mean, I can see a policeman officer on a horse in the middle of the picture there.
That's correct.
Obviously going towards the gate. You can see, well, in fact, we've got other visuals from inside the gates that we're going to show as well a bit later on. The likelihood of, whether it's security or police, actually stopping that from happening, what are the possibilities in your estimate, as somebody who's done this years and years? What would have happened? What's the outcome?
What we see here is something unprecedented. This was something that was pre-planned. It's a group of 425 people who scanned the same tickets about 6,500 times, meaning that one ticket could have been scanned 17 times. And they broke up in smaller groups. They kept the police busy. That then became a public order police problem, assisted by the security. And most of the police officers were deployed on the inside between the stadium and
within the perimeter.
That's quite correct, yes.
Okay, which would make sense, actually.
Correct, yeah.
I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask our director if maybe we can move into the other visuals from within the perimeter so that you can actually take a look, because that's the other question, that the difference between what can I call it? The difference between the gates, how do they break the gates first and foremost? Because again, there was a big question about that. And my understanding is that these are actually, emergency gates. That's correct, open from the inside. Is that correct?
That's correct. The emergency gates is designed, first world stadiums are designed to clear a stadium like the FNB Stadium within 9 minutes. So final whistle, we need to evacuate the stadium. It will happen in 9 minutes, and that's how many emergency gates there were. Emergency management service, you will see there they break through the gate. they've lifted the pins, keeping the gate in place, and you will see they're actually walking into the stadium.
In fact, there's already people running on the ground.
Yes,
there. Yeah.
And already people fell down, and people walking over other people. And this is why what you're seeing here is not a stampede. This is a break-in. And we failed to call it a stampede, and we would want to move away from that word. But going back to your question about the gates have got to be unlocked. It's emergency management services requirement.
General standard, gates cannot, emergency doors or gates cannot be locked because of the fact
quite
that
correct, yes.
That's what they are.
So we saw these groups of people going to different gates, sticking their hands through underneath the gate, lifting these pegs. Security dealt with it, police dealt with it, and then they broke up in smaller groups and they went for different gates. And what you've seen there is a small group of about 100, 120 people, maybe 150 people breaking into the stadium in that clip.
There's obviously now dealing with the matter, we're thinking, how can we fix this issue? When you see two bodies laying on the ground like that, you want to shy away from saying, but it's their fault if maybe they weren't part of the group. Maybe they weren't part of the group. In the same breath, we want to send a message to our fans, get to stadiums earlier, because maybe then you would not have been in a rush to get into the stadium. It's a bit tough, this one, because you don't want to, especially when lives are lost. So then the question comes in, what about if the exclusion zones, as it were, of a stadium, would it make sense to push it as far back as possibly even the street leading up to, coming from Dobsonville in particular, or Diploof, apologies, in particular with the FNB Stadium? Would it work, or it's just it wouldn't? What do you think?
Most definitely. Having lost lives and me meeting with the families yesterday and today again, the Nkosi family and the Choki family, these families are grieving. It was their brothers, it was their sons, it was their family. It's never nice to see something like that. We've got to do something. I had a look at the Nwepe report after the Ellis Park disaster. We ticked all the boxes. We deploy according to the SASRIA legislation. Yeah. We ticked all those boxes. We had all the role plays. We're like the wedding planner. We bring everybody together and we put the wedding together. There's about 50 other organizers working with us. I'm fairly comfortable that each one of them did their job. But 11 years after the Ellis Park disaster, things have changed. Yeah. This inquest that is going to happen from the minister's side, and a parallel inquest done by the PSL is actually very, very important, to make sure that we're on top of our game. 7 years ago, we had the 2010 World Cup. The company has spent, or the country has spent 50 billion rand on the 2010 World Cup. Part of that was for logistical services, safety, security, police, training, the availability of resources, and we as a stadium with private security and private companies need the support of law enforcement agencies. And maybe it's time for us to relook that. We can never lose a life, and we always need to be on top of our game. And I'm looking forward to these inquests to shed some new light on what can be done.
The other question that has been posed, a lot of our viewers saying, a lot of commentary, in hindsight it's always easier, isn't it? But the question is, can we not go back to 2010, where seating is per ticket? You buy your ticket, you're sitting in row B, section C, seat number 15 or whatever it were. Would it work in South Africa? Does it have a place in our football? Because it happens in other sporting codes, and I hate making the comparison when you say rugby or cricket, but it works. Why can't we not possibly do it in football?
We can. We started at the FNB back in 2011. We said, let's use level 2, 12,000 seats, and we put that out as reserved seating. Mm-hmm. That's doing quite well. With every big match, 12,000 seats on the reserved seating. The rest of the seating is still, you sit where you sit. There's various reasons for that. Families supporting each other. We don't like segregation at the stadiums, and people tend to move around. Yeah. Once you do reserved seating, you have to have the resources to enforce that. You have to up your security and your law enforcement agencies by probably another 50 to 1 to ensure that people adhere to the rules and the regulations. Just
out of curiosity, how many safety, security or peacekeepers at a stadium do we deploy on let's say given any match in South Africa?
On Saturday we had 1,533 security officers and just over 440 police and peace officers on duty. So you could call that 2,000 people. The law requires us to deploy 100 to 1. For each 100 spectators, we have to deploy 1 peace officer or security officer. We were on a ratio of 56 to 1. So we almost doubled
what is your requirements. I know we're running out of time. I'm going to ask my director if you can squeeze maybe two or so more minutes out of this. Because then going back to the seating, reserve seating as it were. Here's a question. Is it something that maybe our football can look into as well, actually start owning stadiums? Because that's become maybe easier for you guys to enforce that reserve seating.
Absolutely. You know, we've worked very hard with Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs, who communicate with their spectators, and they've got these amazing platforms communicating systems with and fan experiences on the day. So you're quite correct. It's definitely something we can look in, and it should have been something that we have left or carried over as a legacy from the 2010 World Cup.
Yeah, that's right. Because that's what I'm thinking. Because at the end of the day, if it never happened when we had similar crowds at the World Cup, what is it going through now? But everything I'm hearing right now, Jacques, is the culture of the South African fan when it comes to football. That maybe we should start, instead of a 3 o'clock arrival at the stadium for a match starts at past, why don't we arrive at 12 o'clock?
Correct. You know, I had to look at the attendance. At about 12 o'clock, we had 20,000 people inside the stadium, which was extraordinary.
Yeah.
Then the footfall slowed down, and at kickoff, we had almost 70,000 people in the stadium, which was extraordinary. We need to be careful to differentiate between the fans and the supporters. And a supporter is classified as somebody who goes to a game, support a club, a football match, a basketball match, whatever the case may be, at a fee. In other words, he pays for the ticket. What we had on Saturday is 120, 150 people who were criminals. And we need to separate them from our fans. 87,000 law-abiding fans rocked up to the FNB Stadium on Saturday to watch a match. And 120, 150 people messed up the reputation of football in this country.
Jacques Grobler, unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. And as you said, condolences once again to the families that lost their loved ones over the weekend. And hopefully this can be the last. And it is the first that the FNB Stadium has actually experienced something like this.
That's quite correct. More than 9 million people through the gates, 700,000 events that we've done since the 2010 World Cup. First incident.
Yeah, Jacques Grobler, unfortunately, that's how we have to leave it. Jacques Grobler, Chief Executive at Stadium Management South Africa, speaking to us on, the occurrences of the weekend. As he says, maybe we shouldn't call it a stampede. Rightfully so, can call it possibly criminal activity by those who actually led to those deaths of the 2 people. We'll take a quick break right